Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hayes' Higher Learning. My name is Ashley Hayes, and I am so excited. Today, we have a returning special guest, Pam Iverson. And if you listen to Hayes' Higher Learning, you know that Pam was on last season, and we had a conversation called He's Just Not That Into You, where we talked about boundaries and dating. So I have invited Pam to come back and to talk to us a little bit about love in the midst of revolution. As we are all well aware, we have major shifts happening globally. Of course, with COVID-19 creating social distance and pushing us to be in our homes and in a lot of cases with our partners more than we have probably ever been. And also now this protesting and this advocacy and this consistent fight for decency, not just decency, but for justice and reform and policy as it relates to Black lives and police brutality. And so, as a thinker, as a teacher, as a leader, one of the things that I often think about is how are all of these things affecting our relationships? And so, since Pam is such a cultivator of partnership and such a good educator on partnership, invited her back to sort of give us some tools and some guidance on how we can approach our partnerships. Welcome back to the podcast, Pam.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
It's always great to have you. So, over the past few years, I have gotten to know you as a coach, and I know that you operate the nonprofit org Girls Growing Together. Can you talk to me a little bit about why you started Girls Growing and what your journey to love and self mastery work has been?
Girls Growing is an extension of my personal growth journey. I married and had children very young. I spent my whole 20s focused on parenting and learning how to be a spouse while, my peers were out learning themselves. I didn't focus on my own growth and actualization because I didn't have time. I didn't have the bandwidth. And being perfectly honest, I was not a priority in my own life. My 30s were a revolution. I had a third child, one I had not planned, but 3 is a number of completion, right? And at pretty much the same time, my marriage ended. I was suddenly a single mom, which was devastating for me because being a single mom disagreed with every dream I had had for my life. Every story I'd ever told myself about what it means to be worthy as a Black woman and as a mother, I was suddenly untethered. And there was also a part of me that was just curious and open and expectant. And I leaned in. I had an infant, a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, and no partner. And I decided to put myself first for the first time in my life. I started studying and sitting at the feet of women I admired. And I started growing like hell. And I wanted to share what I was learning with other non-men of color and to also be supported in my own growth journey. And that's how Girls Growing started.
And what a beautiful is and a journey that so many people are on. And I love your term non-men. Why is it important to have spaces for non-men?
It is important to have spaces for non-men, especially being a person in the Black community. We struggle with racism as a collective. But, within our race, we struggle with a lot of phobias. We struggle with homophobia. We struggle with transphobia. So I think it is important to understand that, our liberation won't happen, without it happening for all of us. Right. And we live in a patriarchal society. So men are centered everywhere. Their voices and experiences are amplified. We see that so clearly now with the protests, and the specific name on every person's tongue is a male one. And look, I'm also Black, proudly and deliberately so. So George Floyd's life deeply matters to me. Breonna Taylor's matters just as much, though, and so does Tony McDade's. So it's important that folks who aren't men have somewhere to go to be seen and heard, to be witnessed, to matter.
And what a layer point that is that we need to also be so mindful to also prioritize the names of women who experience the same violence. And so I brought you here today specifically to talk about how we relate with each other, partnership, relationships, communications. And one of the most valuable things that you have contributed to my life is showing me that partnership doesn't have to look one particular way. And so you have become an advocate and an educator for what you call non-monogamy. What exactly is that, and how does it contrast with the idea of the American dream that we've been sold, where we get one life partner and two kids and a fence? How does this differ?
Well, I will say that a lot of our experience as Black women Black people who are not men is centered around, a desire for partnership. And I'm a practical person. So it makes sense to me that expanding the pool, expanding the horizons, opening our minds and removing limits makes more possible for us. Ethical non-monogamy is an umbrella term for the variety of ways people can engage consensually in relating with more than one person at a given time. Polyamory, open relationships, and swinging are a few types of ethical non-monogamy. Mm-hmm. What defines an ethically non-monogamous relationship is that all parties involved know what's happening and enthusiastically consent to participating in whichever relationship dynamic is going on. I don't champion non-monogamy specifically. I advocate for normalizing options. I champion, not accepting personally and not accepting as a people that there's only one way to love and fulfillment, because that's just not true. I don't believe ethical non-monogamy is inherently better than ethical monogamy. I'm just for rejecting the story that monogamy is the ideal or the best or only way.
And it was so jarring for me because growing up, and I'm sure it's a lot of people, especially being raised in the church, I thought there was monogamy and cheating. That was it.
Right.
Like, you're either with this one person or you're cheating, or you one of them people, hellions or whatever, the old folks would call them, who just out there living in sin. And so this sort of shined a light on me on the power of consent. I love that language in it, enthusiastic consent, where everybody knows what the hell is going on. It's open communication.
And so, everybody is with it. Everybody is all the way with it.
Yes, absolutely. And so I think that, while we don't value monogamy or non-monogamy one more than the other, because I think both can be practical, I think that non-monogamy can be a sustainable practice. But I don't want people to think that you can just go out there, start dating multiple people, and that's it. What work do we need to consider if we're going to approach this different sort of form of relationship or way of relating?
I also not only believe that non-monogamy is a sustainable practice in Black love, I've seen many examples that prove it is. Mm-hmm. I know many Black folks who are thriving in non-monogamous relationships long term. I also know many who are struggling, just as many as folks struggling in monogamy. Non-monogamy is not magic. It's not better. Mm-hmm. It's just an option. But it's one that is just as valid, attainable, and sustainable as monogamy. There are many ways to do ethical non-monogamy. Not all of them involve multiple equal partnerships. There are ethically non-monogamous folks who are still aligned with the dream of having a single life partner and who are living that out. They may have a spouse or life partner and simply date casually, or they may swing with their partner. Then there are others who do have multiple life partners. Some of them even all live together as a family unit. and there's every iteration in between. More than anything, I'd like people, especially Black women, to know that there are so many options and to be open to the possibilities that exist for cultivating sustaining love and partnership, to not be limited in terms of what we need to do to begin to explore that. I believe that healthy relationships of any kind require healthy individuals. So I don't personally believe that the self-work needed to successfully navigate non-monogamy is any different than the self-work needed to successfully navigate monogamy. Over time, growth areas may diverge some, but the core work is the same.
Well, you said something right there, my sis. You have to show up healthy in any sort of relationship.
In any relationship.
And does that mean that we now have to communicate more?
I don't even believe we have to necessarily communicate more. I believe that, there's an aspect of, just taking what's given you that doesn't promote work, right? So, monogamy is what is given us. It's what we, it's the default, it's what we consider normal. And so we somehow with that believe we have the tools for it, right? Because it's our inheritance. So we don't look for tools, we don't do intentional work, but we should, and if we did, we would have much more healthy and successful monogamous relationships. That very few people, from my experience, have really healthy communication skills in any interpersonal relationships. So I don't believe you need better communication skills to successfully navigate a non-monogamous relationship. I just think you need healthy communication skills like you do in all relationships.
I think that is accurate. I would be in agreement with that. And so, Pam, there are some outdated ideals that I think a lot of folks are practicing, or a lot that are still being perpetuated. What ideals do you think we would be better suited to discard? Because we're sort of reimagining interpersonal relationships and partnerships.
There are so many shifts we could make that would support our having healthier relationships and partnerships. Prioritizing ourselves, as non-men, which is a revolution in itself. Prioritizing our personal healing and growth, as well as investing in loving ourselves, are foundational to any relationship. Any relationship structure, any relationship dynamic. Secondly, I think that particularly for non-men, it's important that we learn to cultivate true joy, pleasure, and fulfillment in our lives as single people. I say the best way to attract a life mate is by living your best life. And I believe that wholeheartedly. Is proven true in my life. Also expanding our limits, like we've talked about, being willing to imagine life and love outside the boxes we've been given, outside the boxes we've inherited. Maybe think beyond monogamy, okay? Think beyond traditional marriage, maybe think beyond traditional family structure, maybe even think beyond heterosexuality.
I think all of those are beneficial, and they've been beneficial to my life. You and I are in partnership together and help each other in ways that, I don't have a spouse or anything like that. And so I have found community. I live with my best friend, and that's my nesting partner. I help my best friend raise his kid, who's my godson. And so I become a parenting partner in that way. And all of those have been so fulfilling to my life. And that's why it's important for me to have this conversation, because you've really been a key player in sort of helping me reimagine a life that makes me happy, and not just the life that the world says I'm supposed to have.
Yes, it's about holding space for ourselves and for other people to create our own unique individual visions of what is joy, what is love, what is family, and not restricting ourselves or other people to, live within, predetermined lines and boundaries, because there's so much beyond those. It's about being fulfilled, and that's different for everyone. You're a good example, the examples you've just given, our partnership. There are as many ways as there are people to do love and to do partnership and to do family. And it serves not ourselves, it serves not our communities, it serves not the world for us to, deny all the possibilities just to live within these boxes.
Mm-hmm. And see, where I come from, we would normally pass an offering basket when somebody says something like that. This was such a rich conversation, Pam. And thank you always for showing up to help me with the work and for being a consistent partner to me. How can people reach out to you if they want to learn more about the work you do at Girls Growing? And I know you do relationship coaching. Can people reach out to you for that?
Right. Yeah. People can reach me on my Facebook page, my professional page, Pam Iverson, or on my website, pamiverson.com. It's in the process of being revamped, but you can reach me there. You can get information about me and everything I'm doing, information about Girls Growing. You can book coaching sessions. So yeah, hit me up.
Okay. All right, y'all. Make sure you hit Pam up. And as always, you can check the Hazes Higher Learning Instagram page. I will have quotes from this conversation and snippets from this conversation there that you can share with your friends. Please share, subscribe, follow me, follow Hazes Higher Learning, follow Pam, and you can book a workshop on Hazes Higher Learning or book a coaching session with Pam. And so, as always, I will leave you all with the song of the week. I kind of slipped this last time, but today I want to leave you all with Sorry by Beyonce. I ain't sorry. That is my jam. I think it's good to bump through the week and through the revolution. And I wish you all the best in Black love. Thank you for tuning into Hazes Higher Learning, where together we are learning better, doing better, and being better. You all have a wonderful week.
Hello, everyone. It is your host, Ashley Hayes, here again. And thank you so much for tuning into our Black Love in the Midst of the Revolution episode. I'd like to share with you all a segment of a very special interview that I got to conduct back in February, right before my tour was wrapped early due to COVID-19. I had the opportunity to visit Los Angeles and interview my longtime mentor, Spinks, who is the creative director of the art and content brand Verbal Slick. Spinks is from Atlanta by way of Chicago, and he and his wife welcomed me into their LA home and talked with me about how they have cultivated their artistic business as partners and what prompted the move to LA. It was such a joy to witness the way art has changed their lives and to get some insight about how they balance love and work as a couple who produces together. For those of you all who don't know, Spinks is also the man behind all the new branding for seasons 2 and 3 of Hazes Higher Learning, and I am so grateful to call him mentor. His full interview will air next week, but I thought this part spoke well to our Black Love episode, and I asked Spinks what he learned about love, and this is what he had to say.
So I want to ask you another question. What do you know for sure about love? Because I brought you here as a creative artist, but you're also a husband, partner. Talk to me a little bit about that. What makes it work? How long y'all been married?
20. I'm probably off a year.
Wow.
I'm either over or under a year, but I'm gonna say 23 years.
Wow.
I'm gonna say 23 years.
Wow.
I just put up a post the other day about it ain't so much about love. When you say love, you mean relationships. Because love and relationships are two different things.
Oh.
So you say about love, so that's another conversation. I'm assuming you talking about relationships.
Yes.
So I put up a post the other day and I said the only way you know if you can spend a lifetime with somebody is by spending a lifetime with somebody.
Oh, wow.
And so I learned that. Yes, I just learned that myself. I've been married 20 some years, but I just learned that just some few little jewels, like, I mean, aside from the things you already know, like trust and all that, but I tell people this all the time. They be like, they want to hear something magical,
Right.
but it's
Well,
not
need the truth.
magical. The truth is communication.
Yeah.
Communication, and man, communication is a mofo. When I say communication gives you information,
Yeah, it does.
and so can you communicate with each other through, and that communication could be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
You know, that it could be, it's a lot of different things. It's a lot. I mean, it's okay. To give an example, like, you know, how do you, you know, you, I'm just speaking in the context of a marriage. Right. It don't have to be a marriage, it's a relationship. A relationship. Let me not say marriage. There's people, I hate to be like the marriage club, but relationship. If you're in a relationship with somebody, and the minute you start feeling like you might not love them the same, or you're not attracted to them as much as you used to, like you love them, but you're just not feeling them, 10 times, I don't say 10 times, 9 times out of 10, a person isn't going to communicate that to their mate.
Right. Yeah.
But their mate needs to know that.
Yeah. Transparency.
You know, their mate needs to know that. So that's when I say communication. So a lot of the problems in relationships stem from a lack of communication. And so I say communication, and a close second is understanding.
Yeah.
Understanding is powerful. Powerful understanding. So, you know, if I say, I don't know, if I'm just not, you know, how do I tell my wife, my boyfriend, my mate or whatever, that I'm just not attracted to them like that no more?
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's a phase. I don't know. But do I say that? You know, I'm feeling this person at my job. They make me laugh more. Like, I don't want to tell them that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that stuff builds up and shows itself in different ways.
Absolutely.
And so your mate don't know why you moody,
right, trying to figure
and
it
short,
out. Yeah.
and they're like, "What's up with you?" Or and you might be like, "Nothing. I'm tired." You might be tired. You know what I mean? But you're not telling them.
Saying,
you know, so that communication, that could be so many different things. That could be your mom is ruining our marriage, ruining our relationship. You know, I don't like the way you do this or whatever. Like, because a lot of times things can be fixed. You know, we've been married 20 some years. We've been in counseling a couple times, and you know, a lot of you know, one of the times we went to counseling, they was asking us like, "So what's the problem? Like, are there any deal breakers?" And we were like, "What's the deal breaker?"
Oh wow!
And they was like,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know the hell a deal breaker was. I'm like, "What do you mean? What's a deal breaker? I don't like her no more. That's enough." You know, but it was like, you know, is there any abuse? Is there any physical abuse, verbal abuse, drug abuse? You know, so at the time I'm like, does weed count? You know, but but no, so like deal breakers. But we was like, nah. And it was like when we said that, our counselor was kind of like, oh, okay. It was kind of like they was like, oh, we can work on this. But I'm like, no, you can't. I'm up. I'm good, you know. But I learned a lot. But yeah, to answer your question again, what do I know? If I had to put a quote to it, the only way you know if you can spend your life with someone is by spending a life with someone.
Yeah.
Because we've been married 20 plus years, and I'm not making this up. I mean, what's today? Wednesday? I think my wife Monday told me, "Oh yeah, I just learned that you're like dot dot dot." I'm like, I've been like that my whole life. But it's like it's a constant like, and I'm saying that to say like people think like people assume because we've been married 20 some years like we just on cruise control, and we not.
No, you have to maintain.
We can get divorced next week. Right? It's work, and it's sometimes it's effortless, and sometimes it's not. And that effortless feel can be fantasy and numbing because you get used to it. Like, this is cool. I love her. I love him. This is great. And then we have an issue. It's like you want that effortless back, but you gotta maintain that thing.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
so
like
there ain't no
car. You know, it's like it's partnership, and you have to show up
Yeah.
You have to communicate with your partner. I'm learning, having not been in something that long, but as a student of love and asking folks like you, like, I've learned it. And it's so funny you say that, because I think there was a TED Talk and this lady was making the argument. She's like, 9 times out of 10, people just want to be able to say what they think.
Man.
Sometimes I just want to be able to say, I think that person is dope. And you manage your jealousy enough to be like, okay, like, that's dope. And then that goes along with trust. And I talk about effective communication on the podcast because I'm super passionate about it. And I'm super passionate about people being transparent. So it's dope to hear you say, tell them the truth, like, and then deal with the truth as it is, because people act in resistance, right? You don't want to accept this as a thing. Or you, like, just because you're not attracted doesn't necessarily change anything about her. It doesn't make her less dope. It's just how, your approach. But, is there something I can do differently? If not, that's on you, and sorry,
And you need to know, like, it's and it's that understanding, like you say, you want to be able to say, such and such is dope, or whatever that thing is, with the hopes that the person you're telling it to will understand where you're coming from, your intention behind it. But it's that trust. It's a two-way street. Like, I gotta, if I'm hearing it, I gotta trust that she's not trying to make me jealous. I might feel jealousy instantly.
Right.
I'm like, what you trying? What I'm supposed to be, So it's like, it's all that. And so if
constantly checking yourself, self-mastery.
Right. Yeah. So I'm like, it's a two-way street. It's difficult, but I think the more you master that, man, you be all right. Yeah. Because it's like, it's very confident when you can feel like you can tell your mate anything.
Yeah.
It's very, very, it's a very intimate thing. And over time, it really strengthens you. Like, cause you need to know, like, 'cause people breaking, I mean, I make it sound so much easier than it is, cause it's not easy. But it's like, you need to know where each other is at as much as possible, because you may say something that I really don't like, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be in this relationship because of this thing.
Right.
Then we need to know that.
Yeah, we needed to know
Not
that.
true. I don't want to break up with you.
Right.
I love you. Like, damn, now we have this on the table, and this might be a deal breaker for me.
Right.
I hate that this is happening.
But
I don't want to break up.
Yeah,
because what happens is, like, you damn sure don't want to get married and find this out.
Yeah.
And not like it doesn't have to be like some dark secret, but just what I didn't know you was like that. I didn't know you thought like that. Stuff like that. I tell people all the time, like, people get divorced over the dishes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There's an article about that, and it's like, she left because of the dishes, even though, it signifies a bigger thing.
Absolutely.
But it's like, I just,
You're like, that's it. I'm sick of these dishes. That's it. I'm out. But it's right. It's an underlying thing. But I'm telling you, and it happens all the time. I mean, me and my wife deal with it all the time. Like, it's because we're not making big mistakes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's always the little stuff. We not, I'm not disrespecting her. She's not disrespecting me. It's the little stuff. Like,
Yeah.
and it bugs me out, like, how much weight it holds. Like, it's almost embarrassing sometimes. When you look, I've been knowing this woman since I was 18.
Wow.
I've been involved with her since I was 18 years old. And something could happen today that made me like, I don't know if she really in my corner. I mean, I know we've been together almost 30 years, but I don't know. And it's real. Like, it's the delusion is that strong. Like, it's that strong.
Yeah, but you self-identified it. You're like, that's not the truth, right? Like, the truth.
That's I'm good right now. I'm happy with her today.
Right.
But on a bad day, when when my mind ain't right, it's like, it seems, and it sounds, I'm so glad we can joke about it, because it's stuff like that. Like, it seems real.
Right.
Like, it don't just seem like a small, it seems like, because the feeling is real.
Right, yeah.
And so,
you make your emotions your reality.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, my mind is saying, well, if you feel like that, then it's real.
Right.
And it's not, what's this they say? Like, they say your logic should be the train and your emotions should be the caboose.
I like it.
So like, your emotions will always be way at the back.
Yeah.
And let your mind lead. But it don't be
Can't
like
let
that.
them drive, man.
Right. And oftentimes my emotions are the driver.
Yeah.
And what I've learned to do over the past couple years, which has been really, really hard, is to say something as simple as, babe, when you said such and such, that hurt my feelings.
Isn't that friend to just say it? You know, you don't gotta fix it. You don't gotta do nothing else.
I don't like that I have to say it.
Right.
But sometimes I have to say it because she just don't know. She don't know. And in the past, I would just be angry, mad for days. She won't know. I'm still good, but deep down, I'm salty about that thing you did. Or I haven't moved on more so than I have moved past it.
Right.
And now I'm like, and I hate saying you hurt my feelings. It sounds so. It's not a masculine.
It's not a masculine.
It's not what we do.
Thing,
it's not what we do. So it's like, and it's so weird. It's like just it's something. And 10 times out of 10, I didn't know. I'm sorry, babe. I'm never like, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Right.
But to say it's a lot. It take a lot.
So, that's a lot of learning. That's a lot of life, to get that. And I think it's dope, to hear from an older head. I don't want to call you an old head.
That's right. She called me an older head. Nice. I take it. To hear from an old head.
That old school. But no, like it's dope. And it's dope to just, paint that picture of like dudes saying, hey, that hurt my feelings. Just say it. Just say it. Get it over with,
Yeah.
And let's deal with that.